Welcome, everyone, to another episode of In the Eye of the Hurricane, presented by Coastside Contractors. I'm your host, Choate, joined always by the head football coach of the Manatee Hurricanes, Jacquez Green. We want to thank you for joining us as we talk everything Manatee football. Coach, I'm glad we're here in the semifinal week of the FHSA playoffs, having this podcast. It's a beautiful thing to be here, especially at the big victory, third round, regional final game against Riverdale Raiders, 38-0. Tell us a little about what your staff thought as you guys reviewed that tape over the weekend.
We played good. We was aggressive. I thought they had some big backs, and we hit them pretty good. For them to be big old guys that they were. We played light side on special teams again. I think we forced a fumble on 3 straight kickoffs. So the guys were really flying down and knocking the ball loose. So we got to continue that this week. We got to continue to tackle well like we've been doing so far, and we got to continue to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Well, let's talk a little about the game from last week. We'll start with the special teams because that's what we did. We started the game with a kickoff, and immediately they fumble, we get it, score 3 plays later. Kickoff again, we hit them, fumble, we pick it up, scoop and score. So within about 3 minutes, I think we're up 14-0. I remember looking at Danny in the box, and we're like, what did we just see? Right? I mean, we thought from last week before Immokalee that was a quick start, right? But we started with an even quicker start against Riverdale, and like you say, it's all about the special teams.
Yeah, they saw 24 back there. We preached about, putting our hat on 24 all night long. He's a guy that we knew if we had to stop him, but we had any chance of beating that team. And he so happened to be on kick return, and the guys were flying down trying to get a shot on him, and we did a great job.
Well, you talked about last week in the podcast that, kickoff, because the first round of the kickoff of the playoffs, Pinellas Park takes a return for us. First one of the year we've given up on kickoff return. And you said, hey, we made some changes. Some guys are on there. Some are starters. Some are good guys. Jamar Parker's one who got the second one, or maybe the first one, recovered the couple. He's a starting safety for us. So maybe some of those changes obviously worked on special teams.
Yeah, we play a lot of our starters on special teams, though. But as the year go along, guys start getting banged up, so we start, taking them off, trying to rest them. But this time of the year, we say we got to go with our best guys on special teams, and that gives us an advantage. If you want to play backups on your special team, we play starters on ours. That gives us advantage in special teams. And that's one part of the game that we can win.
I'd love to see a field goal too. Still talking special teams, because eventually at some point in a season and games, you're going to have to rely on possibly a field goal to win it. So it's good to get that in there and get that group out there to be a success. Let's talk about the offense. 38 points, 35 points, 3 points came from a field goal, but 35 points, really one of those games where Andrew wasn't needed too much. It was a Keyshawn show. 153 is what I had him at. 4 touchdowns running, I believe. 1 touchdown pass from Andrew Hyde. I think he only about 85 yards, something like that. But it was one of those games where I thought you and your staff did a very good job of, here's what's working, keep doing what's working. And I know sometimes that's boring as a play caller, I'm sure. It's like, can we do something different? But if it's working, continue to do it.
Yeah, the way they play defense, I think they were trying to stop us from throwing the football. And so they gave us a lot of soft boxes so they can run the ball. Even like the third series of the game, they started playing a lot of 3 high safety looks, which gave us a lot of opportunities to run the football. And Keyshawn was running the ball well, and we was moving the football. So we only threw the ball 10 times, I think, the entire game. Andrew completed 5 of them. So it gave us a chance to really get the offensive line going and get Keyshawn going even more in the playoffs. Yeah,
I thought the offensive line did a great job, obviously opening some lanes for some good runs there from Keyshawn. But, if I'm looking at our team, and even go back to 2 weeks ago against Immokalee, where it was kind of the opposite. Keyshawn only had 20 yards and maybe 4 or 5 carries, scored 1, had a screen catch for 1. Andrew goes for 200-some-odd yards passing. He throws for 3 or 4, 5 touchdowns passing the ball. If you're watching our film and breaking it down, I know you want to be balanced, and you also want to make sure we have a strong running game and be physical. But, we do a very good job. Your staff, you guys do a very good job of, during the game, what's working, go with it. And against Immokalee, it was funny. We threw the ball double as much as we did. We didn't have to. Ran the ball. So it's kind of, we could do anything really, and it's kind of figuring out what's working during that night.
Well, I got a good group on offense. I got a good quarterback, good receivers, good running backs, good backup running backs. So we can run the ball or throw the ball. It just depends on whatever presents itself, you know. And the thing about it, we have unselfish kids. So if we run the ball, the receiver's not mad about that. Or if we throwing the ball, Keyshawn's not pitching the field on the sideline about throwing the ball. So and that's the main thing I preach to my guys about, you know, loving each other, not being jealous of each other, and being happy for the team's success.
Well, I was talking to somebody this past week of just a group of kids and how good they really are. And you're right, you don't see wide receivers coming off, you know, I don't know your wide receiver side, but the diva-ness of wide receivers, you know, where's my touches, where am I getting my catches from? Or if it is a pass night, Keyshawn being upset that he's not getting touches. I agree. I think they all support each other and do love each other and want to see everybody do well. And I think that's really special. And we're seeing that, and obviously being here in the semifinals. But let's talk a little about the defense against Riverdale. Pitching a shutout. You know, pitching a shutout at any point is fantastic, but to do it in the regional final leaves it that much better.
They played well. They played lights out. We reset the line of scrimmage. Alvo was in the backfield a lot that night. He's a tough guy to block. You know, when we play him head up as a nose, it's hard because the center know if you're going left or right. He is so quick off the football.
Very quick.
And if you block those guys, we have the type of linebackers that are going to come down here and make the play. That's probably what we have this year that we haven't had in years past since I've been here. The linebackers that are coming down here and sure tacklers.
Well, you know, when Kayvon is having a quiet night on defense, typically that means they're not getting out the hit, they're not getting on the perimeter, they're not passing the ball very much.
Yeah.
And he's had kind of a quiet couple weeks, not to what he normally has done because of that run game we have faced in Immokalee first and Riverdale. In Riverdale, you know, we spoke about it. They had a guy who was going, I think we said for the record, for the school record, right, over 2,000 some odd yards. And I mean, we absolutely shut them down again 2 weeks in a row. Running teams, heavy run teams, shut them down.
And that's the thing about Kayvon. No, he's being unselfish also. He's not trying to not do his job and run there, make a tackle, or go and try to run and cover a receiver who he's supposed to be covering. He knows the way that we structured the defense the last few years that he has to set the edge. He has to make the ball go back inside. He may never make a tackle if the ball doesn't bounce, but he's been doing his job. He's been sending it back inside to Ronan and Caleb, and those guys have been making the tackles.
Well, I thought the entire front seven, but the front three, you know, Ian and Christian and Alvoid did a phenomenal job setting line of scrimmage and making plays, and even when they didn't bounce in plays and getting there. And I love our secondary. Secondary is very aggressive tacklers.
Yes.
Typically, your corners, your safeties, they're the guys that want to be covering guys. But when you can make that combination of guys coming downfield, and Parker and Cotton love coming downfield, and Cotton's not that big of a kid, but he will come down and bring a hat, which is great. And we talked about it. They never really did anything to counter us stopping the run. I thought eventually they would do something, but they really never did.
I think one time they tried to do a boot, but we was back there so fast. I think he threw the ball over to the right of the field with nobody back there. But Cotton and Parker's done a great job at safety this year. When we moved Parker from corner to safety, those guys, you know, we play cover four, so they give us the extra 8 and 9 guys in the box in the run game. Both those guys are sure tacklers. Ryan's a skinny guy, but Ryan would throw his body around. He would try to hit who's ever running the football. He's a smart kid, too. He has over 3.4, 3.5 GPA, so he's smart. He knows what's going on out there, and he's been a great asset to our team.
Well, it was a great victory for region final, no doubt, and pushes us now into the semifinal. So let's jump into the semifinal game this Friday night, Joe Kinnan Field, Hawkins Stadium. It's a familiar foe for the Hurricanes. I know you've played them as well, coaching and stuff. St. Thomas Aquinas, they come in 10-3. They beat Atlantic last week in a shootout, two overtime, excuse me. And one end up winning. Actually, kind of maybe a questionable call that the guy maybe was in, but it doesn't really matter. They're here. They're coming up. This is Mark's since 2005. We played them in 5 and 6 and lost. Beat them in 9. Lost them in 10. Lost them in 12. You got to coach them in 13. Coach against them in 13. You were at Lincoln at the time as offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
We come back in 2020. They come back here. We go and remove classifications. But then now in 2020 they come back to us. COVID year, really weird. Kind of everybody made the playoffs who wanted to.
Yep.
Kind of a weird deal. But you're the offensive coordinator then for Manatee. And here we are moving it 4 years later, and they're back here with a semifinal here at Hawkins Stadium. First semifinal that we have hosted at Manatee since 2011, which we won to go on and win the state championship. first semifinal we've been in since 2014. So 10 years, and that's a long time for some of us fans. I mean, that we were kind of in that role of always in the semis. We got spoiled, and we're back in it. And I think fans are going to come out, and we're really excited about it. But what do you see from St. Thomas? They're 10-3. All their losses are against top national teams: Bishop Gorman from Vegas, American Heritage, and Chaminade. What do you see from them and the staff? What did you guys see from them as you broke them down over the weekend?
They're a good football team. They're a solid football team. They're very balanced on offense. Defensively, they like to play when they're at their best or when they feel like they're being threatened. They like to blitz and play man-to-man. So we have to get open on the outside. Receivers can't be complaining about being held. That's part of the game. And we have to control the line of scrimmage. We can't make those guys, be able to run and throw against us. We've got to shut down the run, make those guys one-dimensional, and then get after the quarterback. Offense, we've got to control the line of scrimmage. We got to pick up pressure and make plays downfield.
Well, let's talk a little bit about their offense first. And the one thing you'll know about St. Thomas has always had big O linemen. I mean, they're all 6'4", looks like 6'5". 300 pounds. They always look the part. There's no question. You talk about being balanced. I'm a numbers junkie, so I love breaking stuff down. I mean, they're like 52-48 pass run. Pretty about as even as you can get. Yardage-wise, I think about only 300 yards or 600 yards more in passing than running. I think touchdowns is 35-34 run to pass. So, it's almost ridiculously balanced when you go out and see it. And they got a couple wide receivers that are their go-to guys. I think Jones, Hawk, and Stevens, and then I think running their wide receiver, their quarterback, Indorf is pretty good himself. And then you got Weish, and I believe that's how you pronounce his name, Weish, and the other running back is kind of their bigger, kind of more goal line type running back. But when you look at a balanced team from a defensive standpoint, we look at their offense. What do we have to do to be able to make sure that, hey, we do stop the run, but at the same time, they do have those weapons on the outside?
I think they're at their best when they're running the football. I think they when they get in critical moments in the game, they try to rely on their offensive line to run the ball. We have to stop their run game. I think one of their backs, Sam Illinois, yesterday.
Yep. Weish,
he's a pretty big physical guy. We got to be able to tackle him. We can't go in there throwing shoulders, let him bounce off. And we have to put a lid on Stevens, number 14. He's probably their most explosive guy on the outside. He's a 10th grader. Him and 81 Jones, both of those guys are 10th graders, but both of them, Jones had 2 touchdowns last year in the state championship game. So he's a guy that, he shows up when the lights come on. So we have to make sure we put a lid on those guys and not give up big plays. And at the same time, you got to realize St. Thomas is the type of team that they're going to make big plays. They're going to make some plays, So we got to regroup and play the next play and not let that play compound the next play.
We've always talked about the big explosive plays, and when you go back to our games where it was close or where we lost going to Lowndes, explosive, the big plays is what beats you and what hurts you. What's so ironic, though, to me, when you look at the numbers on their offense and our offense, they're very, very similar, and we have 2 less games, right? So to me, when our defense goes against our offense, it's very similar to what they're seeing. Maybe not exact, obviously, formation and plays, but from a balance standpoint and what we want to do and what they want to do, it's eerily similar.
We compare them, to me, they more like Buchholz. Buchholz has some big kids all over the field, receivers, defensive backs. They front remind me of Buchholz. Buchholz might have been a little bit bigger at the defensive tackle position than those guys, but they remind me of those guys. But as an offensive line, with our defensive line, I'm not really worried about how big the offensive lines are. We pretty big up front. We pretty big to get linebackers, so we don't have any small guys. And the smaller guys we do have are very, very strong. So I think we can match up with those guys in the box. The main thing to me be the tackling part. Sometimes you tackle well and sometimes we don't tackle well. Well, for our standards, tackle well. So I think we got to be able to tackle those guys and have them behind the stick and make them a lot of 3rd and longs and 2nd and longs.
I think what bodes well in our favor of stopping the run and hitting a good running back is we've done that 2 weeks. Immokaalee's running backs and the ones from Riverdale were not chumps. They were good-looking dudes. Run for 13, 14 yards. One had 2,000. So we went against a team that was run-heavy, and that was their identity, and we absolutely denied that identity. So it's just you got to answer that bell yet one more time. Let's talk a little bit about the St. Thomas's defense. So You mentioned what's their formation? What do they like to run?
They base out of a 4-3. They want to play some cover one. Really, they'll play some zone. They want to play cover one. And the main thing they do is they'll go nickel and try to match up all your receivers to play man or just cover zero and bring pressure. I think that's a South Florida staple of all the teams down there. They like to go cover zero, bring all this pressure and play man to man. So
and most have good athletes on the perimeter and
got good
corners to do
athletes.
that.
But I think we're good enough at the receiver position to be able to handle that. I think we're good enough this year at the quarterback position to be able to handle that also. And at times they'll show pressure and they'll drop back and play a cover two defense, but. We just got to be aware of who they subbing on the field, so if we know if they're nickel or in their base defense. Their base defense is a 4-3. They want to keep two guys in the box at all times if they can. So that's what they do. We know where they're going to be at. So now just a matter of us blocking those guys and calling a good game on offense.
When you look at some of their stats on defense, I mean, I think they have 50 total sacks on the year. I think their leader, and this is again, some more stats are just how eerily similar we are. Their leader, I think, has 7 and then 6. Well, so does Al Voigt and Ian. Yeah. So it's just really weird, some of those stats lining up. Now, we don't have 50 total, but, they've got 50 total against, and that's everybody. That's linebackers their whole time. But, when you do look at their front four, they've got a very good, solid front four. They'll get after the quarterback. They work with their hands really well. Their get-offs are great. What I love, though, is we've practiced against that all year. We've got just as good as the front four, so we can prepare ourselves for that.
I think the main thing we got to do is run our feet. I think they get off good, but they kind of like stick and stay. They don't really, get rid of the guy much. They stick and stay. So like Buchholz, they try to just hold the point right there and cover you all up and let your linebacker scrape and make plays. So we got to run our feet, get movement, and just get Keyshawn started. If we get Keyshawn started, he can make 2 or 3 guys miss on his own.
Well, I know that looking and I'm going to ask you a question on this, but looking at last week's game against Atlantic and seeing what Atlantic was able to do, they scored into the 40s. I think it was 42, I believe, was their final score. But they did some things that, to me, defensively just didn't seem right for usually a very disciplined Aquinas team. Mm-hmm. Some double passes and some things like that. Do you go back and watch those? And this is my question. Obviously we have our style, and you all know what you want to do and the identity we want. But do you watch some of those things and say, look, they're a little bit susceptible to this or that, and maybe throw that in this week because you may be able to take advantage of it just like another team did?
Well, we always keep a couple of different specials in, reverses or double passes, what have you. And we always try to keep some kind of, what you call fox when you fake a pass or fake a screen and screen and go. We try to keep them in the playbook.
Vigilante scored on one of those,
we try to keep those in playbook throughout the year. Actually, we got a big play against Buchholz on the holding call on a 3rd and long.
We did.
There when we ran one against those guys, and we hit Farrakhan for a touchdown against Braden River on one of those guys. So we keep those in the playbook. It's just a matter of what formation we're going to run it out of. Something just to keep those guys from being so aggressive against us.
Yeah, and I think the RPO game is another way to stop some of that aggressiveness from that second level and even the third level is if you don't know if it's going to be a run or pull it out, it's going to be a pass. And Andrew, we've seen this all year long. Andrew's done a really, really good job of reading that RPO. I think that's another way to be able to, they're going to start bringing some pressure and bringing some blitzing to be able for us to take advantage of some of that kind of maybe indecisiveness and in between.
We got some stuff that take advantage of man-to-man that we've been repping since this summer that we really haven't had to use much. I think we use some of it in the red zone where we get mostly man at. So this will be the time to pull it out and hopefully we execute.
Before I let you go to get out to practice, I want to ask you this, and we talked about it right before we started the podcast. I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and one of their sons goes to school here in Manatee County. They said, man, it's wild that you guys are still playing. My son was done a month ago. And when you say it like that, a month, it's a really long time to continue to be in the playoffs, and you're only at the semis, right? So my question is that grind, the grind of 4 extra weeks. Obviously, we want it to be another 5 week for next week to the finals, but that grind is definitely mentally taxing. And I think the team, the coaches, for everybody, there's got to be some kind of mental toughness there. Have you changed and done anything, just kind of shake things up and do something a little bit different?
Well, we try not to. We rarely go full pads, so kids and not just beating each other up. Most of the time in practice, we only thudding, so we don't really go. We don't hit as much. Now, we do get after it on inside run periods and stuff like that to make sure we still sharp with hand placement and hat placement and what have you. And I try to get them out a little early and early each day in the week. Now we may go kind of long on Monday. Tuesday will be a little earlier. Wednesday will be even earlier. And then today we out of here in about less than an hour or so. I try not to keep the kids here and just waste their time with all this doing stuff. I try to tell the guys. So sometimes we might not have film session. I say just make a playlist for the guys, send it to them on Huddle, and you can see who watched the film on Huddle and stuff like that. So I try to come up with ways, creative ways, not just waste my coach's time and not waste my players' time, but still get enough football in to make us successful on Friday night.
Well, I know everybody's going to be excited about Friday, Coach. Thank you for joining us. I know this is obviously a huge week, semifinals, hosting it here at Hawkins Stadium. So thanks for joining us. Everybody out there, thank you for joining us as well. Make sure you're coming out Friday night, Joe Canaan Field, Hawkins Stadium, 7:30 is the kickoff versus St. Thomas Aquinas Raiders in the Class 5A state semifinals. All your tickets can be bought on gofan.co ahead of time, so you don't have to wait till you get to the gate. We hope to see you there. As always, go Canes, go.